Say 25. They say he was only 25 years old when he died. Where did he die?
Medina.
Mm-hmm.
Medina.
He died in Medina. And according to one version, he was in that caravan going to the Syria, and on his way back he fell ill. So the rest of the caravan went on, and he asked to be nursed with his akhwat from Banu al-Najjar in Medina. And he died in Medina. And they say where he's buried is known. And apparently that was like Ibn Ishaq and other historians, they said there was a place they called Dar al-Nabigha, and they say if you go into this building, it's on your left. That, I'm sure it doesn't exist now because it's probably been covered by the masjid. Because where the masjid was built, that's in the territory of Banu al-Najjar. And the masjid obviously expanded tremendously since it was built. Now, and then there's the masjid, and then the courtyard outside of the masjid, which takes up a lot of space. It's the same thing with Mecca. The place is covered by the masjid and the courtyard of the masjid. Now, there's like different neighborhoods there before. And you read in the hadith, like in Medina, you'll say someone went from the masjid to al-Baqiyah. They went.
Traveling.
It was a far distance. But right now, you look at the masjid in Baqiyah. It's right outside of the courtyard of the masjid. Abdullah was married to
Amina bint Wahab.
Amina bint Wahab, and she was from
Zohra.
Zuhra, which is a part of Quraysh. Amina bint Wahab is part of Quraysh. She's from Quraysh. How old was the Prophet ﷺ when his father died? Most commonly, they say that he was still he was unborn. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are differing things are said about that, but that's the most common thing. Allah knows best. It doesn't make a difference for us. And whose custody was he in when after his father passed away?
Uncle. Grandfather.
His grandfather, who was
Abdul
Abdul Muttalib. How old was the Prophet ﷺ when his mother passed away? That's not what I remember.
6 years.
What I remember is 6 years. Allahu A'lam. With all of these things, there are a lot of different versions. And Allah knows best. It doesn't make a significant difference.
So his mother passed away first, or his grandfather?
What I know is what I remember, the numbers I remember is that
6 and
he
9,
was
I
6,
think.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when his mother passed away,
9 years.
and then I remember 8.
8.
Allahu A'lam. He was 8 when his grandfather passed away. After his grandfather passed away,
Uncle.
he was in the custody of his
Abu Talib.
uncle, who was
Abu Talib.
Abu Talib. And Abu Talib was like the successor to Abdul Muttalib. And we've been seeing that so many times, that he's like the president of Banu Hashim and Banu al-Muttalib. What year was our Prophet ﷺ born in?
Year of elephant.
The year that they call the year of the elephant.
Elephant.
According to the Roman calendar.
621.
No,
Never mind.
that you're thinking of something else.
It's not 600.
But you're thinking of something else that is
500.
500 what?
70.
That's what I remember.
What did you say?
570.
7?
570.
70.
That's what I remember.
Maybe 620 hijrah.
What's that? That's what I think.
Sarah.
Okay, see what you can do with it.
I used to be a teacher.
She wants to write.
MashaAllah. It has the cap on. If she knows how to take it off, it's going to be. What day? Does anyone know what day he was?
Monday.
What? Yes. Monday. And that's part of a quote from the Prophet ﷺ himself. Does anyone know the date?
Rabi'a al-Awwal.
It's controversial.
That's the popular belief that's held the 12th of Rabi'a al-Awwal, which is by no means certain. And in fact, I've read some things where knowing that it's a Monday and then calculating, it doesn't calculate. Although even that's not certain, because the way that they counted the years in Jahiliyyah, apparently it's different from the way that the Muslim tradition of counting the years. And they have
days they pass.
they have like leap years and stuff like that. Apparently there was
Tradition to cut off something.
There was a tradition to play around with the months for some bad reasons, but then apparently there was also the tradition of making the lunar year equal to the solar year. And they would blend the two things. Like that's in the Hebrew calendar, it's still a tradition to this day. The lunar year is made equal to the solar year. MashaAllah. She waited till we were finished. Like in the Western calendar, basically they disregard the moons and they only look at the lunar year, and the months, it's just kind of formality that they're around 30 days. And in our tradition, we look at the months without regarding the solar year. And in some traditions, and apparently this is the way it was in Jahiliyyah, and it's the way it is in the Hebrew calendar, they reconcile the two. So a date from Jahiliyyah, from before the age, it's going to be uncertain for a number of reasons. And obviously there should be no religious significance to that date. Our Prophet ﷺ didn't make a celebration on that day. Our Prophet ﷺ gave us two festivals, which are the Eids, and they're about giving the glory to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the day he was born, according to the hadith that you
Passed on
the hadith that you were talking about,
Monday, he was fasting on
he would fast, not have a party, which is a different spirit. Before the prophethood, well, our Prophet ﷺ, what is one way where he earned his living when he was a young man?
Shepherd. He was shepherd.
Earned his living.
Initially he was a shepherd, and then he joined Khadija radiallahu
He was a shepherd as a young man for wages for Quraysh.
He used to work in
and then later on he joined Khadija radiallahu anha.
And then he worked in
Business trade.
as he was older, and that's what his livelihood was
At the time
during
of
the
Nubuwwah.
part we're reading. And we read that indirectly in the Quran. وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. what's wrong with this messenger that he eats food and he walks through the marketplaces. They say that when Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib passed away, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam inherited him, and he inherited like 5 camels and a servant named Ayman, and something else that I forgot. Allahu A'lam. There were, before prophethood, there were 2, well, let's stick with personal things. The Prophet ﷺ was married
Khadija.
before or after the revelation was sent down to him?
Before.
Before. Who was he married to?
Khadija.
Khadija bint
Before.
Khuwaylid. And she was from
Asad.
Asad, which is part of Quraysh. The popular tradition is that how old was he when he was married?
25.
She was 40.
25. And the popular tradition is that Khadija was
40.
40, but that's, mentioned this before, that's Allah knows best. And there are, according to some traditions, she was 28. Then some traditions that are very reliable, relatively. And also the fact that she had a number of children after she was married. How many children did she have?
6.
Just 3 boys. All his kids.
6.
6.
It would be very unusual. Allah is best for
Oh, yes.
a woman to have 6 children after turning 40. Allah knows best. Anyway, it's not a good idea to talk about women's ages in general. It's not my business in the first place. There were 2 kind of like historic events that happened during the life of our Prophet ﷺ before he was, before the revelation was sent to him. Or there's 2.
One was when he was with Halima in his village that time.
No, that's personal. 2 like historic landmark events. They were not about him.
اللي هو غزو الكعبة من أبرهة.
Well, that's the year of his birth, the army of Abraham.
Half al-Fadl.
That's a thing. I'll count that. And we'll have to make it 3 now. There was one thing before.
إعادة بناء الكعبة.
Yes,
Yeah.
the reconstruction of the Kaaba. And there were Half al-Fudul. And before that, there was something. A war.
Fajar.
The Harb al-Fijar,
Fajar.
which was between Kinana and between Banu Amr or Hawazin. That has a story. I think we talked about it before. The reason that they always mention that in Seerah is not because whether our Prophet ﷺ was involved or not, Allah knows best. There's nothing real reliable to say either way from a reliable source. The reason that that's brought up is because that was a major historical event in the history of Quraysh. And they say that Quraysh, they used to, right now, we count the years from which event?
Hijrah.
The Hijrah. But there was no Hijrah before the Hijrah, obviously. They say that Quraysh used to count the years from the year of the elephant, and then they counted the years from the war, Fijar, that he caused the sacrilegious war. And then they counted the years after the death of a man named Hisham. The death of a man named Hisham ibn al-Mughira. And if you find out who that is, I'll give you extra credit.
Fatima.
Hisham ibn al-Mughira.
Walid ibn
Oh, you're close. You're close. ذريني أصطبح يا بكر إني رأيت الموت نقب عن هشام. So that's the elephants, the war, the death of Hisham ibn al-Mughira. And then they counted from what you mentioned,
that building of Kaaba.
the reconstruction of the Kaaba. اسمع. The last thing we talked about, that Khadija gave birth to all of our prophets' children, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except for one. And how many? How many daughters and how many sons?
Two sons.
They say that two of those sons are really one. Allahu Akbar. They say that one is a nickname. Ibrahim was not the child of Khadija.
Yeah, I know, but
They say there was Qasim and Abdullah, and that Abdullah was called At-Tahir. So some historians, they count that as three, and some historians say they were really two, but At-Tahir is a nickname given to him, because he died in his infancy. And you see why that name would be given. The four daughters, what were the names of the four daughters?
Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, Fatima.
Yes. Only one of them out-survived, lived longer than the,
Prophet.
lived after the Prophet ﷺ.
Zainab.
Fatima.
Fatima.
And she was the first one to die.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's all we'll cover today. But we have, for next we have a lot of
Homework.
very good review questions. Inshallah, we'll discuss this next week, but review them, come prepared, inshallah. There's a number of questions here, and here's the map of Quraysh for you to fill in the blanks. A lot of these questions, you can find them by going to the material that we passed out before. Some of them you may be able to find in the Martin Ling's book or some of the older videos. And some of them are just very difficult questions and you might not be able to answer them. Like
They are for a
Abdullah had a twin sister. What was her name? That's a question here, but if you know it, if you can find it out, that's good. But some of the questions, if you can't find the answer to them, it's okay. Did you get the email with the link to the material from before? I sent out